snowballs.
Yeah. Snowballs? Where's the Twinkies?
You realize what you've done to my wife?
I am not looking for trouble. I am but a humble gato in search of his next meal. Perhaps you gentlemen can help me find a single score.
Go on, boys, chop his head off. Right, silly little bleeder. One rabbit stew coming right up. Jesus Christ!
It's the Cinemaniacs Easter special. See, it was not random. He didn't totally pick that out of the blue, and it happened to be appropriate. We intentionally put that clip in there because it's relatively related to Easter. Hi, I'm Mark. I am the Cinemaniac. You are hopefully a Cinemaniac if you're watching that. Thus, collectively, until somebody else is sitting next to me, we are the Cinemaniacs. A shorter list of things to talk about this week than I have in the past, so less, well, it'll still be mushed mouth, but less motor mouth rambling. It'll still be motor mouth, less rambling. I don't know. So first up, we will whiffle on over to our second camera and discuss this big release this weekend. This is the big one. This is the one everybody's going to see, or this is the one everybody's talking about, or this is the one I went to see. Accurate there, at least. We have the newest in a probably endless until two of them fail series of Disney remaking their animated films as live-action films. This time we have Tim Burton back in the remake saddle with a tale of a lovable outsider who nobody understands until they realize he has a special talent that makes him unique. It's not Edward Scissorhands. And this is, you got your, speaking of Tim Burton, you got your reunion of the Batman and the Penguin, you got your Michael Keaton, you got your Danny DeVito, you got an elephant with big ears that can fly. His name is Dumbo. So, as I'm fond of saying, back in my day, like most people of my age or a little bit older, we had the chance to see all the Disney classics on the big screen in a movie theater. On film at the time. Doesn't mean you still couldn't do it digitally. Disney used to re-release all the films every 5-10 years or so. So I got to see all the Disney classics, which as far as I was concerned were new movies. They're animated, they don't look old. And loved them and knew them that way. And then you would occasionally see them on TV and stuff like that, and then video came along. And now Disney doesn't do that anymore. They put things out on video, and then they take them away, and they put them on video, and then they take them away, and people see them that way. So I don't know how foreign Dumbo is to a lot of kids these days. I'm sure it probably is fresh to a lot of kids, unless their parents, you know, are fans of Disney and keep the video copies around the house. So Disney's doing this thing where they remake all of their animated films. There was a Lion King, there is a Lion King coming, there's an Aladdin coming, there was a Jungle Book, there was a Beauty and the Beast, on and on and on and on. I don't think any of these remakes will ever replace the original for anybody. Probably, though, for little kids who see this will be their Dumbo, I'm gonna guess. I haven't seen Dumbo probably since I saw it on TV as a little kid, so we're probably talking early 80s. It would have been around that same time that I saw it in the theater. So my recollection is fairly dim of the story of Dumbo, other than the broad strokes. So this was a fairly fresh experience going in to see this live-action version. This centers far more on the people than Dumbo. Than in the previous version, it was Dumbo and talking animals and all that. This is just Dumbo, and he doesn't talk. And basically, you have two kids who are in a circus. Colin Farrell's coming home from, I think, World War I, armless, one arm. And they're trying to, rebuild their family relationship in this ailing circus. And Danny DeVito is the ringmaster. And he buys a cheap elephant, and it has a baby. And they're going to, hang the fortunes of the circus on the baby that attracts everybody. And he gets this freak. And then ultimately, probably where the story goes from there. So what's funny to me is we're saying these are live-action remakes of all these classics, but Dumbo is still animated. He's just animated in a modern style that makes him look pretty photorealistic, but he's still animated. And he doesn't look like a real elephant. He looks, well, I don't think CG looks real most of the time anyway, but he looks a little more stylized than an actual baby elephant would look, which is fine because it helps set him apart, makes him more of a character and expressive. You have little animated, like the mice from the original, they're animated in this, they look like real mice. Big first bone of contention in this film, there's a scene with a monkey, and I'm like, oh, there's a monkey, so I'm there, there's a monkey, you've got my attention. And it's a CGI monkey. And I'm like, is it really less expensive to have a team of people creating a computer animated monkey than just having a guy with a well-trained monkey or a lady? So it took me out of the movie. I'm like, well, that's a stupid cartoon monkey. It's not funny. It looks fake. It looks silly. It's awful. So there's that. Danny DeVito, who's great generally, something was off about his performance in this movie. It was like he wasn't an actor or he was a bad actor. It's like he's just has these odd line readings. And I know he can act. I know he can be really good. It has to be something that he or Burton wanted to do, but it rubbed me the wrong way the whole time he was there. It was like bad regional theater line readings, or somebody you pulled off onto the set to like be a stand-in and run lines with somebody. It wasn't good with him for some reason. Michael Keaton as the impresario who comes to town and wants to make Dumbo part of his big circus, his big attraction at sort of a Coney Island, Atlantic City boardwalk kind of place. He was fun. He was great. And he brought what he needed to. Eva Green is good as an aerialist who's under his wing. For me, it was fine. I didn't have any problem with this movie at all. It was entertaining. It was touching. The visuals were really good. My favorite part is when it goes to Dreamland, which is this big technological marvel of a stationary circus, stationary carnival, shall you say. I don't remember the original movie very well, so I can't say how close to the design is to what the cartoon was like, but the production design was amazing, and that really captured my imagination and was like, wow. This movie can be seen in 2D or 3D. I saw it in 2D, and in retrospect, when I found out you could see it in 3D, I think it probably would work fairly well. There's a lot of location shots, and a lot of the way it was shot, I think, would probably yield some fun 3D effects, it's kind of immersive depth sort of things. The Dumbo character itself is very lovable, very sympathetic. The flying sequence are very exciting. I don't really have a problem with this movie. I think it's made more for little kids than adults, and that's maybe where the Danny DeVito performance is. Maybe he was gearing it toward a younger crowd, I'm not sure. But I don't really have a problem with this Dumbo, but I have to say, for me, I probably, like the other Tim Burton remakes, his Planet of the Apes, his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I probably won't remember much about this down the line. So for me, this will never replace the original, even though I'm not like a crazy major fan of the original. It's just, maybe it is whatever you see first makes a bigger impact, and maybe it's just, in my head, a remake is just kind of trotting the same ground again. And I can count on one hand of a very, I can count on one hand of an unlucky shop teacher how many remakes really bring any cultural gravitas and linger in the memory very much. So at any rate, fine for kids, probably fine for adults. It was entertaining. It was well made. It was just, it wasn't spectacular to me. It didn't really stand out, and it wasn't crazy memorable, but it was well done. So up next is a film that I had never heard of. I had heard a little bit. This is a very, very small film. I'm reviewing this because this is playing at Keene Cinemas here in town, and it was playing at the Wilton Town Hall near where we are, so it is playing sort of regionally. This is a very small independent film that is getting I think it's probably being released by its own company. Stars Barry Corbin, who you may remember as he was in War Games, he was in Any Which Way You Can. I believe he was one of the stars of Northern Exposure. He was somebody that you would recognize in his day, 70s, 80s, 90s, TV and movie actor. Barry Corbin stars as a man who has just sold the farm. He didn't buy the farm. He sold the farm to his kids, and he's sort of trying to figure out what to do with himself as a retiree in this great big wide open world where he can do anything, and all he really wants to do is reclaim his title of Farmer of the Year. So this is a film that I had only heard of because it had played locally, and I assumed that maybe a local filmmaker had something to do with this. I haven't really done any research on the people behind this movie. Okay, I didn't like it. I thought, oh, cool, Barry Corbin, he was always fun. It's always cool to see somebody who was always sort of a bit player or an ensemble player getting their own movie. That's neat. Terry Kaiser, who you would know as Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, and I always knew as somebody who was Jack's, foil, or this guy played like 50 bad guys on Three's Company over the run of that show. Always nice to see him again, a couple familiar faces. Kaiser's in it a little bit. Corbin is certainly the star of this movie. And basically, as I was saying, it's the story of an old guy who his life was the farm, and now he is on his own to do whatever he wants, and he's not needed on the farm, and what does he do? So he decides to go to his 65th anniversary Army reunion in California. So it becomes a road movie where he and his kind of snot-nosed granddaughter hit the road, and what adventure they find. And the answer is not much. It's a very small film. It's an indie. It's clearly very low budget. It's decently shot most of the time. The acting, a couple people are okay. I just really didn't like it, and I will say I give credit to anybody who can make a movie and get it in theaters coast to coast, which maybe not a lot of theaters, but it's in a screen far from where these people live, I believe. But to me, it felt like the kind of movie that you see at a film festival, and it's played a lot of film festivals. You see at a film festival, and like the actor or the director is there, and everybody gives it a lot of credit and is very nice to it because people who made it are there. But it's just not. It's not that interesting. Like, it's a slice of life movie, and Corbin is okay, but a lot of the scenes kind of go nowhere, and a lot of the humor kind of isn't funny, and the film is pretty cruel to the main character a lot of the time, and I don't know if it's supposed to be funny that his luck in life are so bad, or if it's supposed to be sad, and the dramatic moments don't quite work, and some of the editing is kind of weird. It's just, it felt like a high-end student film to me. It really didn't work. And nothing to do with the movie, but I was one of, I think, 2 people at the screening when I saw this yesterday, and it just sort of ends, and I'm like, it ends and the credits hit, and I'm like, was that last scene supposed to have been profound or funny, or what was going on? And I just kind of like did this at the end, and then I realized somebody else was behind me. So yeah, I can see people probably liking this. I think older folks may like this because there aren't that many films that are about retirees and older folks that don't kind of make fun of them. And this one really kind of doesn't. It's very sympathetic to its main character. And they may identify with a lot of this movie, and certain people may be less critical than I am of something like this. I mean, I went in expecting nothing and was just kind of bored halfway through. I looked at my watch, it was 45 minutes in, and I realized I'm only halfway through this thing. So, Farmer of the Year was not for me. It might be for you, but it is out there for you to discover should you be interested in it. So now we move on to that which you can see on home video. It was just those 2 in the theater for me this week. This is what you can see on the home video platform, device, format, service, what have you, of your choice. First up is a film that was very popular last year, the latest in the Transformers series, which is a series I've hated all the Transformers movies I saw. They're all garbage to me. And I thought, oh great, another Transformers movie. Here we go again. And there was rumblings that, this one actually is good. And I'm like, yeah, that's what they say about all those series that I hate. This one's the good one. How many do I have to suffer through before I stop watching these? So I gave this one a shot, and I'm not going to say what I thought yet. But basically, this is the story. It's a prequel to all the other Transformers movies. It's set in the glorious 80s, where a young independent girl who's on the cusp of leaving home stumbles across an old VW bug in a junkyard. And wouldn't you know, it turns out to be a robot Transformer. And they share a journey while the Transformer is being pursued by evil authorities. It's kind of basically E.T. And the film is entitled Bumblebee.
Ideal's Robot Commando is here to help you.
So they were right. This was the first Transformers movie I liked. This was a good Transformers movie to me. It's different from the rest. It's not all about unwatchable, shaky cam, a million moving parts against a million moving parts, worldwide city destruction. This is as weird as it says to say this about a robot movie. This is a human story. Again, it's pretty much E.T., but you have Haley Steinfeld, who's this independent, she loves cars, she lost her father and is still dealing with that loss, lives with her mother and younger brother, and seaside California town, so it's very golden, magic hour California 80s kind of thing going on. She has a next door neighbor who has a crush on her, and they kind of hang out, and she discovers this, it's E.T. and Herbie, because she has the magic bug who also can become an ass-kicking robot. And John Cena stars as a bad guy who is the government elite military or whatever who's been tracking Bumblebee, and they're trying to take him out and capture him for scientific study and all that, which you've seen a million times before. Cena, I'm not sold on him as an actor. He tends to do comedies, and I don't think he's really funny in the comedies for the most part. And in this movie, the way he's acting as a serious bad guy, I keep feeling like he's trying to be funny, but it's not supposed to be funny. So I didn't dig him in this film. But the action sequences are good. They're not a lot, but the action sequences are good in this movie because they're shot properly. Maybe they're trying to do an 80s throwback, or maybe they realize, it's actually more exciting when you can see what's going on. As I say, Steinfeld is a heck of a lot of fun. She's really likable and cool and a go-getter and badass and all that, and vulnerable. And the music's really good, and it's well shot. And it really does feel like, everybody says, oh, back to the 80s, whatever. But it does kind of feel like that. It has a really good feel. This is one of those movies that I really wished I could have seen at a drive-in. It has a very outdoorsy, sun-setting, breeze in your hair kind of feel to it. And I think this will probably work just fine on video. I know Bumblebee was a big, popular character, breakout character, as they say, in the Transformer movies for kids. And this is pretty much fine for kids. I don't remember anything that's really inappropriate in this film at all. I think they really did gear it for that kid audience that really has taken this character under their wing, so to speak. It is a different looking Bumblebee than you usually see. Bumblebee is usually a Mustang, I believe. In this film, he is the VW Bug. And I don't know, I really like Bumblebee a lot, which was really weird to say. This is a movie, I wouldn't buy it, but I would certainly sit through this again. And I would certainly welcome seeing this on the big screen again if that was ever an opportunity. So speaking of things that transform, we go over here. Good. We have a story based on a true story. I'm going to say based in all caps and neon letters. Story about a man who transforms into a not terribly successful person in life into the Vice President of the United States. If you believe this film, the puppet master of the George W. Bush presidency. We have a story about Dick Cheney and his life and rise to power and all of the theoretically evil things he did in a film entitled Vice.
I feel it.
You do.
So this comes from Adam McKay, who's known primarily for comedy films. I think he's done some films with Will Ferrell and some of the other people in the cast here. You have, sometimes I'm dumb, Christian Bale as Dick Cheney. Transformative performance. This is a guy who's he's known for going the Raging Bull route with his lot of performances, his method kind of thing, where he gains or loses a lot of weight. If you ever see The Mechanic with Christian Bale, he is frighteningly thin, and he really lost that much weight. And in this movie, he put on a lot of weight to sort of transform himself into Dick Cheney. And there are times you're almost, I don't know if you think you're looking at the actual guy, but you forget you're looking at Christian Bale, which is pretty impressive. Steve Carell as Rumsfeld, really good casting. There's some pretty good casting in here. Amy Adams is Lynn Cheney, who's not somebody I know in real life, but she's quite good. Everybody in it's really good. It's really well made. It's really, I don't know if flippant is the word. It's all over the place editing-wise. It does some really oddball things. It does some comedic things at times. There is a moment in the film where the end credits roll, and then they sort of say, "Ooh, wait a minute, that's not how it went," and it goes in a different direction. It cuts back and forth between this focus group that allegedly that Cheney had sponsored at the time to try to see what the public would like and not like and how they could spin things. And that comes into play in kind of a funny way in the end credits. And it claims that it's all based on fact. But I have no love for the Empire. I'm not a Dick Cheney fan, but I think if you're making a movie about people who really lived and are still alive, you really should make it accurate unless you flat out say that this is a spoof or that we're having huge liberties, which some movies come out and do that. This one didn't. And I think I'd gone to the History versus Hollywood website that I'm a fan of to see, how accurate was this. And from what that website said, this is not very accurate at all. And to condemn this person for doing all these evil things and being the puppet master for everything that's wrong with the world now, and then not have that be accurate or true, that bugs me. It's just like, I don't have a beef if you have a different opinion than mine, but if your opinion is not based on actual reality and truth, that's where I have a problem. So after the fact, I liked this movie a lot less. I was okay with it while I was watching it. It's a pretty unpleasant watch because it has the hero of the movie is doing a lot of nasty things and a lot of things that ultimately, if you are of, a certain mindset, which I tend to share, it did not make the world a better place. But then if you go afterwards and say, well, no, he actually didn't do that, or that actually never happened, I'm like, well, what is this then? It's basically a hit piece, and that's not too cool no matter which side you're aiming at. So performances are good. It is relatively fun to watch, unless you really don't want to see this guy being made into a monster. But I kind of have a beef with the fact that, at least according to what I read, it's not very accurate. So that is out there. There are Oscar nominations and multiple awards and nominations for the performances in this. So it's worth a watch, I think. It just might be worth a watch with an idea that maybe this is a spoof of this person's life and not an accurate depiction. Not playing close to the facts with historical and biopics always bothers me because I think there are a lot of people, they don't want to read the book, they don't want to read the newspaper, they don't want to read, anything. I'll watch the movie, that'll be fine. Or they'll just watch the movie and take that as gospel. And so often it's not accurate. Like some people really hated Bohemian Rhapsody that I know because it's not very accurate. And it's always like, the truth is actually kind of interesting. There's no reason not to play by it. But anyway, Vice is out there, and make of it what you will. One more film, one more, as I like to call them, normal movie. One more normal movie will whiffle on over. Hi, how are you? Clint Eastwood is back. I keep thinking he's going to stop, but the man doesn't. He's in like his 90s now. He keeps making movies. Clint Eastwood is back as a horticulturist who finds that the horticulture world doesn't pay very well. So he hooks up with a Mexican drug cartel and starts running drugs all over the southwest of America and makes a heck of a lot of dough. This is a film based on a true story, once again, entitled The Mule. So this was, I say so when I come back from everything. Sorry, we'll work on that. I actually do watch these back. I try to perfect this patter, and nobody's perfect. So we have Clint Eastwood as this very genteel character. Generally, Clint Eastwood is a tough guy. He's a badass. He's a bad mother of Pearl Bailey. And this is one of the few movies I can think of, maybe the only Clint Eastwood movie I can actually think of where I was looking at the character and not Clint Eastwood in this movie. I mean, every other movie, he's pretty much Clint Eastwood. He's a movie star. When you reach movie star status, when you're a Tom Cruise or a John Wayne or a Tom Hanks or whoever, you're pretty much who you are. You bring your personality to the role. But this was one where I kind of forgot it was Clint, and I didn't expect him to whip out a piece and pistol whip somebody. He's this guy, and you feel scared for this guy at times, partly because Clint Eastwood is so old and frail looking that when he is menaced in the film, you're like, this could really not go well. I don't think Dirty Harry's coming to this party. So you have Clint as this horticulturist who winds up being a mule, the titular mule, and running drugs back and forth. He doesn't know for quite a while what he's doing. He just knows he picks up a package and he drops it off and he gets a whole lot of money and it digs him out of the hole that he's in, and it helps him with some of his, family financial issues as well. This is a portrait of a man who is sort of estranged from his family. His ex-wife doesn't want to talk to him. He hasn't seen his daughter in a long time because the flowers always came first in his flower shows. Does not seem like a Clint Eastwood role that I'm describing, but it is. And it's really good. It's very funny at times. It's very serious for the most part. Let me go back on that. When I saw this movie, the trailer makes it look very tense and very scary. I was surprised how much humor there was throughout the film, where he's dealing with these bad hombres, as he calls them, and they're serious about maybe hurting him, and he's throwing out the Clint Eastwood attitude. So there are times where he feels like Clint Eastwood. Mostly he's a very old man, and he just realizes, whatever, do what you're going to do. I don't have that much time left anyway. So The Mule is really good. It's directed by Clint Eastwood, which is pretty much a sign of quality. I can't think of many films that I've seen that he's directed that weren't of a certain standard or above that, usually far above that. So the Mule is good, and this is so funny. Every time I see Clint Eastwood in a movie, other than Trouble with the Curve, I feel like, wow, if this is the one he goes out on, he went out on a high note. And then he makes another movie, and I'm like, wow, if this is the one he goes out, he goes on it on a high note. So that's what I'm saying about The Mule. If this is Clint Eastwood's last movie, boy, he went out strong. And I don't know how much more he has left in him, but the quality level is pretty consistent. So I will say that. The Mule was very good. Now, one last film. No Arrow Video Corner thing in the corner because of issues. But hey, we don't need that. It's the Arrow Video Corner. It's the Arrow Video Corner. I'm telling you right now. Guess what? It's the Arrow Video Corner. We have one Arrow title this week. Whole bunch more next week and in the weeks coming. But just one. But oh, what a one it is this time. This is a new-ish 2016 science fiction film from director Takeshi Miike, who we had his film Audition, which was the first film that most people in America really knew him for. He tends to make these really weird, gruesome, perverse, strange movies, a lot of times about, gangsters, although he's been making more like period swordplay films lately, martial arts kind of films in Japan. This is based on either a manga or an anime or both. It is the story of a group of astronauts that go to Mars to help make it more suitable for human human habitation and human commercial exploitation, and they come up against something they're not quite ready for. The trailer will tell you all you need to know, and I'll reiterate afterwards. This is Terra Formars. Yeah, roach people. So I went into this film blind. I knew it was a space kind of movie. The copies I get from Arrow are like white label. There's no cover art or anything, so I like to just pop them in and hit play as quick as I can and just let it unfold. And boy, did it ever. I did not expect where this was going to go. This was a heck of a lot of fun. I really, really, really enjoyed Terra Formars. So basically the deal is it's all of these sort of mercenary astronauts, like people who are taking this trip to Mars for money, and they're going to basically eradicate the cockroach problem on Mars. Apparently in growing moss all over the surface of Mars to help acclimate the surface temperature and help oxygenate the atmosphere, somehow Mars is overrun with cockroaches, cucarachas. There's a cucaracha problem on Mars. And these people are sent there to help just basically kill bugs. So I'm thinking in my head, oh, this is going to be sort of like a very low-end Starship Troopers or something. And then they go and they find out that these cockroaches have evolved into these muscle-bound, if you know The Tick, the comic or the TV show The Tick, sort of like that. These muscle-bound, like muscly cucarachas on two legs carrying like big old stone Captain Caveman clubs coming after them. So basically now it is these astronauts versus these giant cockroaches who want to kill them, and it's crazy. And then they kick it up a notch, where we find out that the astronauts, unbeknown to themselves, have been injected with the DNA of various Earth insects that when they activate that synthesized DNA by shooting themselves under the chin with these little, dart guns or whatever they are, they transform into like hybrid bug humans with the fighting abilities of the bug. So whatever was unique to this bug, the person has, and they become these weird, like, it reminded me of like a weird oddball mix of like, I don't know what, Ultraman and, not really Ultraman, I guess maybe Power Rangers, where everybody transforms and you get these little like almost cut scenes where you get these 360 rotating thing of the bug, and on the screen it says what all of their abilities are, and like this techno music kicks in and the person goes out and starts fighting cockroach men as the praying mantis lady person with her sword hands. And this movie, this is what I enjoy, folks. This movie made me so happy. I was sitting there grinning like an idiot through the whole thing, giggling and saying, wow, Takeshi Miike can make movies that I enjoy, because I tend to not like a lot of his films because they're gross or they're dull or they're weird or disturbing or whatever. And this is one that's like, aside from all the beheadings, is probably fine for kids. I really enjoyed this a lot. This is one I'm definitely keeping and showing to friends. Hopefully I can catch friends who don't know what this is and let them just watch it as it is, and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's a space movie. I really thought Terra Formars was a blast. 2016, so relatively recent as far as McKay stuff goes. Not a huge amount of extras. There's a little bit about McKay. There's some behind the scenes. There's some trailers. Not loaded like some Arrow discs are. But for me, that doesn't matter because, oh God, was this movie so ridiculous and fun. I would say if you can go in blind, do it and you'll enjoy it more, but I just told you all of what it's about and why you should see it. But Terra Formars is out tomorrow, and boy, did I like it. So we have a little bit of time left. I don't have a lot else to talk about other than next week we have the Pet Sematary remake. We have the live-action Shazam / Captain Marvel, but the original Captain Marvel movie. The Best of Enemies with Sam Rockwell again, as sort of racial tensions in the South, school segregation kind of drama. Looks pretty good. On video, On the Basis of Sex, Dog's Way Home, Welcome to Marwin, a couple Arrow films, and a little movie called At the Drive-In. That's what I'll take a moment to talk about. So I don't know if you know, I don't know how long you've been watching this show, but on most weekends I go whiffle on down to Pennsylvania and I work at a drive-in theater, the Mahoning Drive-In Theater down there. It's all retro, all 35 millimeter drive-in that plays nothing but classics and old movies and themed weekends. And we do Zombie Fest, and we do, so it's all 3 days of zombie movie triple features. And we do Camp Blood, which is usually camping themed slasher horror films, and like this Friday the 13th and things like that. And we're doing a Harry Potter weekend this year, where over the course of 4th of July weekend, all of the Harry Potter films will play in 4 nights double features. Every year we open with, April 26th, we open with Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka as a tradition. So you kind of get the idea. It's old movies, it's old trailers, it's old snack bar ads. People dress up. We decorate the snack bar thematically to be themed to the movie in decor and maybe props or whatever, photo ops. So it's a heck of a good time. It's what I'm about. It's what my life has led me to the point of being able to run the cash register at this drive-in. Told you that to tell you this. At the Drive-In is a documentary that Alexander Manelli, filmmaker from Lancaster, PA, did over the course of the last couple of seasons. I think it really focuses on the 2016 season. He did this documentary. I'm in it. My friends are in it. It's about that season of the Drive-In. It played festivals. It got some festival acclaim. And it was on PBS in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is pretty cool. And now it's coming out on DVD next week on April 9th from MVD, which is the company that provides me with so many of these Aero Video and MPI and some of these other, maybe not MPI, Aero Video and other things, MVD. Some really cool videos to talk about on the show. It's really cool to me that my favorite video distributor that I'm friends with is releasing a film that I'm in. So I'm going to give a totally unbiased review of At the Drive-In next week. And I did want to say, if you have interest in picking a copy up, not just because I'm in it, it's going to be on all the major online retailers, which is really cool because, again, a film about the place I love and my friends and I is available on Amazon and Target and Best Buy and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of a kick for me. We recorded 2 audio commentaries, actually 3, with all of us who were there. We actually went down to the Drive-In's projection booth in the off season, and it was freezing outside and in, but we got some space heaters and we sat in the projection booth and watched the movie on the laptop, and we did commentaries. So it's got commentaries with all of us. And I'm not going to review it before I review it. I'm not unbiased about this film. But anyway, that's going to be something I talk about next week. And if you have any interest in this show or the stuff I talk about, it's probably something you'd be interested in. Coming up, some interesting things you may want to look up online, some festivals and stuff if you like the trashy movies that I like. The Salt City Horror Festival. Yeah, Salt City Horror Festival is happening in Syracuse, New York next weekend. And that is a one-day event, and it's like 8 movies. And it's Jaws and The Thing and Psycho and a whole bunch of films on a big screen in Syracuse at a really nice theater, the Palace Theater. That's something that you can look up and check out. The Riverside Drive-In, which I am wearing a shirt for, does these 2 events that I love. These are the events that got me to drive all over the place to go see cool movies with cool people. It's called Monsterama. It's Drive-In Super Monsterama in September, and that focuses on 60s, 70s sort of horror movies, sometimes 50s, and monster movies. And that's, you get your AIP, your Amicus, your Hammer, stuff like that. And in April, they do April Ghouls Monsterama, which is coming up very soon. That's April 26th, the weekend of the 26th. And that's all kinds of stuff. It's a little edgier, it's a little newer, so to speak. They're 30 years old, they're the new movies. So you have stuff like Mother's Day and Blood Beach and Slithis and many, many more. And that information is online. It's the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. That's pretty close to Pittsburgh. So people go and they camp out and they stay over and they make a weekend out of it. And sometimes Tom Savini shows up and it's really cool. And Boston has some really great film screenings. If you follow this show on Facebook, which is Facebook / the Cinemaniacs, look for the Cinemaniacs on Facebook and you'll see this. I tend to post I share a lot of events for retro screenings and cool film screenings and when a cool video company has a sale and all that kind of stuff. So if you want a little value added for this valueless program, feel free to follow us on Facebook. I guess that's really all I have to talk about. I'm rambling at this point. So I will release you back into your own personal private lives, and I will say I hope you have fun and watch some movies, and feel free to email us at movies@CheshireTV.org if you have any questions about anything or comments or recommendations or whatever, or if you agree or disagree or have more information on anything I'm blabbing about here. Until then, I'm Mark, I am the Cinemaniac, and I will see you next week.